That reminds me, when you talk about energies and especially water and information, Dr. Emoto's work in hidden, messages in water. Are you a proponent and fan of that type of, understanding that water is essential and carries the frequencies, and you could speak to water and kind of empower it as well? And we are made of water, so that's incredibly important.
We learn that in our first training in shamanism when we're children. We learn about the elements and how they operate, and then how we can utilize them for higher intelligence, healing, emotional intelligence, and ways in which we adapt with nature and energy. That's where we get our powers from. So Dr. Emoto's work, which was basically communicating to water as water is taking in the frequencies and vibrations that it's being communicated to, right? But that's one aspect of the chain of events that take place on both a spiritual, physical, emotional, mental level. We have in our world, and what I love about Dr. Emoto's work is that, he's setting up the tone for humanity to pay attention to just the simplistic understanding of creating some form of test that shows people what is actually happening to rice, what's happening to water, and so forth and so on. But we must go further in our understanding of our development and our understanding of intellect towards testing the awareness of how we're being affected. Human beings were not meant to be around technologies and things that are actually not associating them to the balance of nature. Our devices that we've created have been ingenious acts of works and marvels of some of the greatest thinkers of our time. However, we did not consider the fact that these things are actually detrimental and dangerous to our development and our species. And so if we're going to create a lot of these types of aggressive things that are around us, that are affecting us, chemicals and certain pollutants and certain types of machinery that are giving off certain types of EMFs and all these different things that we have developed in our evolution, then we must also be aware of the balance of those things. And that's the one place we have not been aware of. Our body is made up of sensitive frequency that is moving through our system, that is communicating to our cells, our organs, our vascular system, our immune system, our neurological system. Everything is representative of energy intelligence. And if energy intelligence is being affected by some type of energy that is not in cohesiveness with those frequencies, which is what I talk about in my book when I talk about the codes of our body, right? When we manipulate food, we're manipulating the code that was meant to go with that food, that creation has already, nature and creation, the great spirit or source that knows what is in its highest good for us, is supposed to be divinely connected to. Right? Just like our awareness of mental health, right? Here's a very good one, right? So most people on this planet think in two different ways. They think in malfunction in thinking, and they think in functional thinking. Malfunction in thinking means that you operate as a source creator, as a destructor, a destroyer, and an unraveler. You are a person who thinks against yourself. So when someone is sick in the hospital, for instance, or someone has a flu, or someone has any kind of situation, the first thing we do is we give credence to their sickness. We give credence to the flu. We actually go into fear. We create stories around it. We get emotional around it. We create more fear around it. And all of that is creating malfunction in thinking, which is spiraling human development and also spiraling us into complete, utter desecration. Human beings don't realize that if you say, I have $10 in my bank account, the story that you tell about that $10, you could be, how am I going to pay my bills? What's going to happen to me? I'm going to be thrown out in the street. I'm not going to have food. I'm not going to have this. I'm not going to have that. You're telling a story around that one thing, that $10. And therefore, you are creating malfunction in thinking. So now, because your mind is the masculine aspect of your body, we call it the keeper of the fire. It burns your emotion, which is the feminine, which is the water. So it burns out the water in your body. Okay. So what does it do? It literally is a bully, attacks, beats up, criticizes, confuses, causes pain, suffering, and so much more that it can do, because based on all the things we see in people's lives, of what it does to the feminine energy inside. So the feminine energy, which is the emotions, then starts getting upset. And instead of the mind taking responsibility and saying, I'm sorry for giving you incorrect information that has caused inflammation, pain, suffering in the body because you have been in suffering, I can't believe you're getting emotional right now. Where is this emotion coming? I'm so annoyed by this emotion. So what does the mind do? It works harder. It tries to abandon the emotions. It creates more things to stuff the emotions, such as alcohol, drugs, anything outside that creates a form of codependency. The mind then starts doing everything it can. So what happens? The emotions gets even more upset. Then the mind gets more angry that the emotions are getting upset. Now what happens is you have what is called a downward spiral, because the mind and the emotions cannot operate. So the masculine and feminine in your body cannot operate together. So you lose all ability to feel self-motivated. You start thinking you're not good enough. You start thinking worst case scenario. You start going back to every time you felt your emotions in some kind of situation, which means you'll go back to past thoughts, which means now the mind is being so affected and overwhelmed by all the past thoughts that now it's so intense, but it doesn't realize that by everything your emotions feels, it creates. So once that happens, now your physical self, which is connected to the emotions, is now experiencing the very things that are happening to your emotions. Now your mind is really freaked out, and your mind then begins to unravel because the inflammation goes into your cranium. It goes into your neurological system. Your synapses start firing off wrong codes and frequencies. The synapses lines that are building all of those bridges of intelligence start deteriorating. And now you have Alzheimer's. Now you have dementia. Now you have mental decline, mental health disorders, bipolar, ADHD, all of these different things, all governed by emotions. And now a lot of it can be epigenetically brought on. A lot of it can be also things that happen within the womb. So in shamanism, when we look at situations, we don't look at it from the way that human beings look at it. We look at it based upon energy, frequency, and intelligence, and emotional intelligence and adaptation. And if we see human beings not able to adapt and evolve, we know right away all the cause, core, effect, record, memory, discordant vibrations that are causing those things to happen. And then we begin the process of sharing it or giving people steps in order to be able to dismantle it.